we are going to be joined by our city manager, Craig Cornwell. I hope everybody is staying safe and taking this shelter-in-place serious. Are you guys being serious about this, or hopefully we're not treating this as a staycation, because it's really serious. This virus is vicious, it's very contagious, and we need to act accordingly. And unfortunately, I've known many people have reported that either direct family members, unfortunately, or people that they know have contracted the virus. I've even been made aware of fatalities, and so it's just really critical that we really take this serious. So thank you all for joining us on today. So as of yesterday, which was the 31st, there were 3,011 cases in Los Angeles County confirmed for COVID-19. That included 54 deaths. As of today, there have been 16 reported cases to date. I just also want to clarify a couple of things. You may have heard unofficially that there were firefighters that had been exposed or contracted COVID-19. That is false information. Again, I want to say that is false information. Our first responders responded to a call. It was expected or said or assumed that the actual person that they were servicing had COVID-19. Out of abundance of caution, the firefighters were quarantined until their test results came back. The actual test results came back from the individual that they serviced as negative, and so they have not been exposed. They are not positive. Thank God that the person that they serviced is not positive as well, and so that was false information, and I really ensure that the information that we share is verified. I don't want to, as a city leader, just cause you all to be in a panic, and so as information is confirmed, we will let you know. And then I also received a couple questions as to why is City Hall still open. I just want to clarify, City Hall is not just open to the public. There are a few critical service departments that are open to service the community by appointment only. We are following the CDC, the LA County Health, and the state of California's recommendations and guidelines for essential service providers, which includes all city governments across America. So we are still doing our jobs. We're still making sure that your services are being delivered, that the city is still functioning. But again, we are taking precautions. We are continuing to disinfect the city throughout intervals. Every appointment that is serviced, the area is completely disinfected before the next person is allowed to go in. And we are also practicing social distancing for those people that are coming in to take care of some essential services. So we are staying safe. As of today, there have not been any additional outbreaks or any people that have contracted the virus. And so just wanted to clarify that. Moving forward, it's very important to take this safer at home order seriously. It is estimated that a quarter of infected individuals do not exhibit any symptoms, and they are still very contagious and can infect others. We need to stop the spread of COVID-19. We need to flatten the curve. And what the curve is just that there's a point in time where the virus can continue to infect and spread, and the goal is to be able to limit the number of people that are exposed to the virus so that we can dissipate and address the virus. And it's important that we don't allow additional cases to spread rapidly, and that's why we are all sheltering at home, because that is the best way to stop the virus. And the best way to go is just to assume that everyone is infected and to operate accordingly and to utilize all of the resources that are available. Also want to make you all aware that as of yesterday, Compton College announced that they had their first confirmed case as of yesterday. Once again, they're notifying everyone that may have had contact with the individual. The individual had not been on campus for over 2 weeks, and so they are out of the red zone in terms of being contagious and exhibiting additional symptoms, but they are following those precautions. And you can also follow Compton College on Instagram or Facebook to get direct information on that. It is important to remember the basics of safer at home. Non-essential businesses should be closed. The city of Compton is now enforcing this mandate strictly. Code enforcement is out citing non-essential businesses that are still operating and giving them a closure warning for the same day. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, they're also issuing notices and shutting down businesses that are not supposed to be open. No one should be playing at city playgrounds or parks. They are also closed. And you may have seen caution tape on playground apparatus. It's very critical that we take this seriously. For safety, only one person in the family should be going out to perform essential tasks, including grocery shopping, picking up prescriptions, going to the doctor. It's critical that we do not visit family members at this time. And I just want to reiterate that I understand that sometimes people have childcare or various arrangements with family, but please take this seriously, and wherever possible, let's limit interaction with people outside of our immediate household. We also have created a COVID-19 webpage on the City of Compton's website. You can visit comptoncity.org/covid19.asp, and you will have a variety of information. I actually have the page up here. There's every single notice that the city has instituted from various legislation that we've passed as part of this Response Act. There's also information about our resource guide. You can download it there. The resource guide is excellent. It's updated daily with new information, so it's a Google link that will continue to update as information is added. There's also our video updates. If you've missed different town hall lives, I'm going live every week, and I'm actually, as of now, going to ensure that we have notices at least every other day, and then you'll have some type of notice from me daily on social media about any new instances that are happening within the community. So we'll make sure that you are connected. There's also information about utilities. There's county updates. There's information from council meetings. There's also business resources. And there's also shareable graphics that you can spread the word. So feel free to access this website. It's a great source of information, and we're trying to simplify and giving you all the critical information that you need. Also, we are still working on a test facility in our area. There are specific guidelines to be eligible to get a test, and we're working to make sure that tests are available to Compton residents and that they are economical as well. We've been pricing tests in other areas and making sure that we can work with a local service provider to make that available and affordable to you all. Regarding our homelessness community, the LA County Emergency Services is working with service providers to service their needs. There are currently over 5,000 hotel rooms secured to house people who need to be isolated or quarantined. There is an intake process that the service provider would need to go through with the Department of Public Health. We are in contact with the LA County Emergency Services units. And if you know of any individuals that need to access this resource, this information is available on the city's website in our resource guide. And if you still need assistance, feel free to email my office at contactmayor@comptoncity.org. And so, as many of you know, the $2 trillion stimulus was passed. Most adults that make under $75,000 per year will receive a check for $1,200. You will also receive $500 for each child under 16 years old. If you are claimed as a dependent, you will not be eligible to receive this money. The funding should be received by April 17th for most individuals that have passed their submitted their 2018 tax returns. And so, if you receive direct deposit from your taxes, your money will be direct deposited. If not, they will be sending a paper check, but you'll be in the second wave of disbursements. Unemployed individuals and those on Social Security are eligible to receive the payment, and you do not have to pay taxes on the payments. The new unemployment benefits are more comprehensive. They have been expanded and now include those who are self-employed, sole proprietors, and part-time workers. Eligible individuals will receive an additional $600 per week on top of the standard unemployment benefit for 4 months. Federal student loan payments have also been suspended until September 30th. If you take money out of your IRA or workplace retirement plan as a result of coronavirus, you can also do so without the usual 10% penalty. So out of respect for time, Mr. City Manager, I'd like to have you just share the latest from a city operations standpoint on the COVID-19 emergency response. I understand that you have employed several mandates to keep city staff safe and to keep our city services operational. So if you could just share for our community members what's happening on the city's behalf.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. the first thing we did was to ensure the employees' safety. You know, we have the higher risk factors. Um, if you have a respiratory illness or over 65, compromised immune system, or just feel uncomfortable, we've allowed employees to take a leave, use their accrued benefits. We've given them information about California's relax the unemployment and disability insurance. From there, in following the guidelines, our next objective is to reduce the population at City Hall as much as we can. So in trying to keep up with the social distancing requirements, we're going to have a very aggressive telecommuting policy. We have also employees, we've stopped face-to-face meetings of 10 or more people. We have stopped some departments, as you had mentioned earlier, are by appointment only. We don't let the public in City Hall, but a few people at a time. And then those, when they're finished, they leave City Hall, then we let the next group in. So we're doing all we can to not gather. We have added masks and gloves. And we're doing all we can to protect ourselves, while at the same time understanding we have a service to our residents that we have to conduct right now.
Absolutely. And what I've been really hammering home to residents is that we are an essential service provider, that all cities across America are still functional, operational, and that they still have city employees delivering services. And so we are in line with best practices across the nation.
I've talked to several residents at City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
They want to start water service.
Mm-hmm.
They want to pay a water bill. They
Right.
have cash only.
Mm-hmm.
They have issues with their businesses and they want their plans reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And these activities have to keep going.
Exactly.
I'm very appreciative of our water field workers that are going to water wells and making sure pump operations are continuing. Of course, our first responders. I mean, we all have a job to do right
now. Absolutely. And thank you all for your service as well. I also wanted to just have you to share just disinfectant practices that you all are employing just to ensure that City Hall is clean and that we're in accordance with CDC guidelines for operating facilities.
So day to day, we have a department called General Services, and our custodians are part of that department. Mm-hmm. And they come, all the common touch surfaces, the doorknobs, the conference table, desks, the chair arms, those are all wiped down multiple times a day. Mm-hmm. We have also, over the past, since Friday, we've had 3 major commercial deep cleaning and sanitation projects in City Hall, at our water yard, and at our public works yard. Just to do our best to ease employee concerns and the public as well, because they have to come into City Hall. But to let folks know that we're taking the sanitation seriously.
Thank you. And then also, could you just report on, it was reported that there were 3 to 4 firefighters exposed to COVID-19. So could you please just clarify that situation?
Yes, that news came out over the weekend. It was our firefighters responding to a traffic accident, and the patient, at first the hospital was under a belief that the patient was COVID positive. It has later been determined that the patient is COVID negative.
Okay.
There was no virus found, which means our firefighters were not exposed to the virus.
Okay, that's great news for the residents that were concerned.
Those firefighters are currently at zero exposure right now. We're very thankful.
Yeah, that's truly a blessing. And then also, it was reported that one of our employees had potentially been exposed to COVID-19. So, it's in accordance with HIPAA laws. Is there any information that you could provide on that situation?
Yes, I can tell you that the employee has not been at work since last Thursday.
Okay.
They are under a 14-day self-quarantine.
Okay.
And we are still waiting on confirmation of the determination.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. And hopefully we can update the community sometime this week on that outcome. It sent a few people into a panic, so that will be helpful. Thank you for that, Mr. City Manager. And then just if you could just recap how city council meetings will be handled for the foreseeable future, and then we can close on that.
So the city council, as well as personnel board meetings, planning commission, our public meetings are under the guidelines to have 10 or less at a meeting. Those 10 participants are following social distance guidelines, so we're at least 6 feet apart from each other.
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to city council, for the public participation, we have a phone number, and I can provide it so we can post it.
Okay.
As well as email. I know the email is cityclerk@comptoncity.org.
Okay.
And you can have your audience comment read at the meeting.
Okay, and we'll repost that information for sure.
Right. So we're going virtual for our public meetings, and those are the kind of measures we have to take during this time.
Okay, and just 2 additional aspects. Could you just confirm for the public that the city leadership is in regular communication, that they are scheduled and standing meetings for communication to be provided, and that you've been providing briefings as issues arise? We just want to make sure that people understand that city leadership is working together regularly during this crisis.
Yes, well, we're at work more than we're at home.
Right.
We are here because the situation is so fluid, and guidelines and orders from federal to state to county can change at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're constantly reviewing the guidelines. We're constantly looking at various departments of the city, speaking with employees, keeping mayor and city council apprised of what's going on. So it's been around the clock efforts to get us through this period.
Absolutely. And I've just shared that we've had phone council briefings over the weekends when necessary with all electeds. and that we also receive daily briefings when things occur from your office as well. So, but before we go to the city attorney, lastly, Mr. City Manager, could you just share how code enforcement is dealing with non-essential businesses that are still being open? A lot of people have asked, well, there are many businesses that are still open that are not essential. So could you just talk a little bit about how code enforcement is working on that?
Yes, we'll have code enforcement patrols. They will be going to, we're getting that information all the time. And if the residents, please continue to let us know who's still open. And code enforcement I just had a meeting over the weekend to really ramp up getting these businesses shut down.
Yes, and I can also affirm that is the case. I've been contacted by two individual businesses that have been contacted by code enforcement as of Friday, another over the weekend, and then they followed up again today. So code enforcement is out there, and they're also following up to ensure that these non-essential businesses are closed. So great information. All right. Well, we'll have the fire chief join us on the back end. Mr. City Attorney, thank you for joining us, and also thank you for let me back up. Mr. City Manager, thank you for your service. Thank you for thank you for all your great work that you have provided to the residents of Compton. It's a pleasure to work with you on the council. So I know you have many things to do. If you need to log off, that's fine. But thank you again for this update, and we'll continue to keep the residents updated. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
Hello.
Hi. All right, let me make sure I can maximize you. Damon, I think Zoom will actually pick up your voice as you're speaking, but let me just adjust this view. Okay, this is better. This is much better. Okay. So, Mr. City Attorney, you have issued a couple of notices from your desk, from the desk of the City Attorney, just notifying residents and businesses about the new ever-changing provisions that are being issued at the federal and state level. One of the main issues that you have discussed in great detail is the new FMLA guidelines, as well as EPSL. And if you can maybe start there with how residents are protected from evictions during this time.
Sure. So part of the guidelines that have been issued is a moratorium on evictions. It includes no-fault evictions. And just so to be clear, the moratorium includes a ban on evictions for people who are unable to pay their rent due to financial impacts related to COVID-19. It also prohibits landlords from no-fault evictions, which means landlords who evict tenants in order to do improvements to the buildings or for something other than non-payment of rent. That there is a moratorium in LA County for all evictions for both residential and commercial tenants. And that is currently in effect. It's retroactive to March 4th and goes through May 31st. In addition, tenants who are unable to pay their rent have 7 days after the date that their rent is due to notify their landlord of their inability to pay the rent. And so there is no requirement that you let the landlord know in advance of your date. Even if it's as late as 7 days after, you may still notify your landlord of your inability to pay rent. And then you have 6 months at the end of the emergency proclamation. So again, whenever that proclamation ends, currently there is no end date, but proclamation ends, you would then have 6 months in order to pay any missed rent during that time.
Okay.
In addition to the county's proclamation, the city of Compton at its council meeting, I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, approved a moratorium and suspension of all eviction activity from our local housing authority, again, during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as long as all of the stay-at-home orders and everything is in effect, the states of emergency that have been declared by the state and federal government. The City of Compton's local housing authority will suspend all evictions within the city.
Okay, awesome. And then I know that the council also took provisions to suspend evictions for small businesses as well. So that is also effective at this time. Could you just talk a little bit about the new provisions or the provisions that exist under FMLA and the expansion of that?
Sure. So most people know when you're employed, you're entitled to the Family Medical Leave Act, which allows you to take up to 12 weeks of time to care for yourself or a member of your family who suffers from some medical condition. What's happened is in order to be eligible for FMLA, you have to have worked for your employer for 12 months, 12 consecutive months, or if you're on hourly, a less than full-time basis, at least 250 hours in order to be eligible. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was passed by the Congress, now allows employees who have been employed for 30 days to be eligible for FMLA. So it is an expansion of opportunity for employees who may not have previously met the requirement of tenure in their position to be eligible. Now, all you have to do is have been employed for 30 days. The amendment also expands the coverage of the protected leave to individuals who have to stay home for COVID-related reasons. So a lot of people who are home because their kids are home, because the schools are closed, or their daycare centers are closed, and they have to stay home to take care of their children. Before the act that was passed, they would not have been able to use their FMLA time for that purpose. Now they can use that in order to stay home to care for their children, and it's job protected leave. So you cannot be terminated while you are on job protected leave.
Okay.
That's big pluses to how it benefits residents during this time. One of the other provisions of the leave is the first 10 days of that leave can be unpaid, or you can use your PTO in order to be covered. And then from the 11th day after, the employer has to provide the leave at 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, and the employee can supplement that in the remaining 1/3 with any of their accrued time so that they can receive 100% of their salary. If they're unable to work at work, or if telecommuting is not an option, they can also take advantage of this leave. There is a cap on the paid portion that doesn't exceed $200 per day and $10,000 in the aggregate. So once you've been paid a total of $10,000, then that leave, it exhausts itself at that time. You also have to have eligible, you also cannot have used your FMLA for the year if you want to use this leave. So if you've already used your FMLA within the last 12 months, unfortunately, you would not be able to utilize this leave because it's simply an extension of what's already provided.
Okay.
Then there's the paid sick leave, and this becomes particularly important now because it begins effective today. So at this point, and this does not run concurrent with FMLA. So this is for, you may have already used your FMLA and you're still entitled to this paid emergency sick leave. It's paid in addition to the sick leave that you may have accrued with your employer. So let's say you have 30 hours of sick leave on the books for your employer. This is additional leave on top of those 30 hours. So you can exhaust this federally provided leave first before if you have to dip into your own sick leave. It's paid at 100% of your regular pay, but that is subject to daily caps of $511. So if you make, as long as you make less than $511, you'll be paid at 2/3 your 100% of your salary up to that amount. And if you make more than that, then it's capped at the $511 per day, and that's for a total of $5,110. So I'll kind of looking at it for people as 2 weeks worth of pay up to $5,110. And that's if you're unable to work because you've been exposed to the coronavirus, or you've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, or you're experiencing symptoms. If any of those three categories fit you, then you're eligible for that particular sick pay.
So just let me recap. So as of today, if there are employees anywhere, this is beyond the city of Compton, but if you're an employee and you have symptoms, or perhaps your medical provider has recommended that you self-quarantine or quarantine, you actually can use this new, it is EPSL sick leave, effective today for the next 2
Correct.
weeks, and be paid 100% of your salary up to $511.
That's correct, per day.
Okay, per day. And so, perfect. So if people need to take off, they have that provision afforded by the federal government to do that as of today.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Okay.
And then if you are required to stay home because a relative has been diagnosed with COVID or is experiencing those symptoms, or you're unable to telework or work because of you need to care for your child who's out of school, then employees can receive 2/3 of their regular rate pay, up to $200 a day, for an aggregate of $2,000. And they can supplement the remaining 1/3 with any accrued paid time off or sick pay to get 100%.
Okay.
So that's, again, if it's due to childcare needs or you're unable to telework, then you're entitled to those benefits.
Well, that's really critical, because I know that the argument has been that without these provisions or financial protections, that employees may be incentivized to keep working if they don't have accrued time. So as of today, that has been alleviated under the stimulus bill for the most part. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Lastly, I know that there have been additional provisions extended to small businesses. Could you just talk a little bit about that? I know that your office issued a detailed analysis of this new provision under the Stimulus Act.
Yes, so we're actually going to send something out today on that point. There are resources available through the Small Business Administration that provide for salary supplements. I forget, a significant portion of this bill was allotted to small businesses who are going through this tough time and may have a difficulty meeting payroll. So for some of the business owners here within the city, this will allow you to continue paying wages for your employees during this time, and we'll send out the specifics on how you can apply for those funds so that people can take advantage of that as well. On top of that, the EDD has also relaxed some of its guidelines in terms of eligibility for unemployment benefits. Typically, if you file for unemployment, there's a 1-week waiting period that you have to wait until you can become eligible. The governor has waived that 1-week waiting period, so people can apply immediately to receive the benefits. Also, you are now eligible for unemployment if, due to the pandemic, your job has shut down, your hours have been reduced, you have to miss work again because of your child's school or child care needs, or you can't work because you've been diagnosed. That now makes you eligible for unemployment, whereas before you had to be unemployed. You had to have been terminated. Your employment had to have been terminated. Now you can remain employed, but because of a reduction of hours or because of your inability to go to work because of these other reasons, you're now eligible to receive the $450 per week through the California state unemployment program, and the federal government, under the new legislation, is supplementing that by $650. And so now the weekly total amount that one could be eligible for is $1,050 per week.
That's substantial, and I'm sure that would help a lot of people. Also, could you just share? I read some analysis that also sole proprietors are also covered under this new protection for unemployment. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and I neglect to say sole proprietors are also eligible for the funds I mentioned about the Small Business Administration funds that have been set aside. So it's for both. And I'm sorry, what was your question about the sole proprietors?
If you could just share how sole proprietors are also covered under the stimulus package.
Oh, yes. So sole proprietor, under the stimulus package, there are funds set aside For, again, payroll, for any additional expenses that are incurred as a result of the closure of businesses, the reduction of services. The act is intended to assist these businesses in floating through this period so that they don't have to shut down. The intended goal is to keep staff from having to be laid off during this time. And so what we will do, and I'll send this to you, Madam Mayor, as well as a link for those resources so that sole proprietorships, as well as, and if you work for a small business, you can also send this to your employer in case they are not aware, and as they're doing their planning for business operations and personnel, that they can know that these resources are available.
Okay, wonderful. I did receive one question through social media that I thought was really excellent about the non-essential businesses that are violating the mandate for closure. My request is, could your office send a notice to all non-essential businesses, and first of all, letting them know that they're in violation, and then also to the essential businesses that are allowed to continue to be operational, could we also provide them with some recommended health guidelines on how to handle their employees, just providing them with what the state is mandating in terms of operation, disposing of trash and other masks and gloves as people are using them and throwing them in the trash, just ensuring that they're following safety guidelines and protocols.
Sure. So what we can do is work with code enforcement to try to make sure that we can notify both essential and non-essential businesses of their obligations during this time. We've also had conversations with the Sheriff's Department about enforcement within the city to make sure that these businesses that are operating when they shouldn't be are cited appropriately. And if there are questions that a business may have in terms of determining whether or not they qualify or meet certain guidelines of being essential, they can certainly call my office to get that to get more information on that.
Okay, wonderful. And I will recommend people do that. Thank you so much for your time and for your expertise in sharing with the residents and our business community, Mr. City Attorney. I'm going to defer the last couple of minutes to our fire chief, Chief Simpson. Chief, if you could just share what the current operational plans are in relation to COVID-19. I understand that the emergency management team, they have their standing meeting. There was a meeting last week where you rolled out what the strategy is for handling this pandemic. Could you just maybe give a recap as to what our emergency plans and operations look like for the residents?
Absolutely. Last week, we actually did where we actually walked through the Emergency Operations Center, commonly referred to as the EOC, in case we need to activate. It's fully prepared and fully ready, as well as being stocked with food so that we can feed the participants that would be at the EOC if we fully evacuated the Emergency Operations Center. The fire, as opposed, in regards to the fire department, we are constantly stocking up on supplies. Although supplies are being limited and on back order, we are in real good standing with our supplies as of today. In fact, we picked up today. We picked up an additional 2,000 N95 masks, as well as 60 gowns, some goggles, and gloves. So we're constantly making sure that all of our fire department has the personal protective equipment, or PPE, needed to mitigate this COVID-19 situation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chief. And I understand that things are very fluid, and as different conditions in the city change, it will mandate a different response. But I just wanted to assure the residents that our emergency center is up, active, and staffed, and that we will have the capacity to respond should an outbreak of a larger magnitude occur.
Absolutely. And I also, Madam Mayor, I have on the phone, I have our medical director. If you want to ask her any particular questions, Dr. Ashley is on the line listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ashley. Thank you for joining us. If there's any information that you can just hammer home to the residents about the severity of COVID-19, I know that there's a lot of misinformation being shared comparing this to a common cold or the standard flu. Could you maybe just give maybe a short recap as to how severe and serious this virus is?
Of course. Thank you for having me also. So coronavirus is known as a common cold. However, this is mutated and thought to be coming from what they think is bats in Wuhan. And the problem is the inflammatory effect it has on anywhere from 1 to 3% of the population around day 7 to 8 of illness is the concern. So while yes, there is some people that will have a flu-like illness, that 1 to 3% will continue on to have a pretty severe respiratory illness. And even prior to us seeing this in the United States, even we were under the impression that this was affecting the elderly and those with comorbidities, other medical problems. But I've had to intubate patients that were in their 20s at my hospital that have been on a ventilator for over 2 weeks. This is not a disease that only affects those that are elderly or with other illnesses. So it's unclear why it affects one person, not the other, but it causes just severe respiratory distress, and it can hit pretty quickly. And for the youth that thinks that they're, young and immune to many things, it's been just pretty surprising. So I know it's hard, but at 6 feet apart, I really think that we're seeing a plateau right now of cases because citizens are starting to listen and stay home, and we're seeing that result in the ER.
Compton family, in closing, we will continue to provide you all with current video updates. You can tune in to the city's website, comptoncity.org/COVID-19 to access all of the city's resources related to this pandemic, from state of California updates to county updates, as well as city updates. Any changes relating to the COVID-19 pandemic will be noticed there. There's also a very exhaustive and effective Compton resource guide available for you to download and share, from accessing free resources from food, basic supplies, as well as fresh produce. There are a variety of incredible service providers that are a part of this Compton United relief effort. We are meeting on a weekly basis and providing and sharing information so that we can better service you, our Compton community. Also, a big thank you to our city manager, Craig Cornwell, for providing us with a detailed update on city operations, as well as our city attorney, Damon Brown, for providing us great insight on what has come down the pipeline with the stimulus effort, relief for individuals and small businesses, as well as protections for tenants. Also, lastly, a thank you to our Fire Chief Simpson, and our city physician for providing some content. We will have an update from our city physician next week, so we'll share information on that as well. And again, the most important thing to stay safe at this time is to stay indoors, shelter in place. That is how we can flatten the curve and protect our community. Our most vital assets is one another, and so we need to ensure that our seniors are safe, as well as our children and everything in between. I cannot emphasize how critical this virus is. It is very contagious, it is very dangerous, it is vicious, and so we need to ensure that we protect each other and stay indoors. Again, it's a pleasure to serve as your mayor, along with my colleagues on the city council, Councilwoman Michelle Chambers, District 1, Councilman Isaac Galvan, District 2, Councilwoman Tana McCoy, District 3, and Councilwoman Emma Sharif, serving District 4, as well as our city clerk, Alita Godwin, our city treasurer, Doug Sanders, and our city attorney, again, Damon Brown. Thank you, and we will continue to provide you all again with weekly updates so that we can keep you in the know regarding COVID-19 and this national pandemic. Thank you all, God bless you, and talk with you soon.